Hello everyone, Voodoo here. So Blizzard has recently released onto the PTR the brand new Evoker specialization, Augmentation. Now I spent the last few hours testing stuff, so in this video I'll go over the basic overview of our first new specialization in the game, as well as giving you my thoughts on its viability and how much it'll output. Alright, so I'm here in Org, I'm on my fancy Evoker, and you can see here, Augmentation, brand new specialization, imbues allies with the might of the black dragons and bends time and fate in their favor with bronze magic, and the sample abilities it gives you are Ebon Might and Breath of Eons. So this class has a lot to it, the spec, sorry. So right off the bat, here's our talent tree. Now this is kind of just what I've been like messing around and playing with for like DPS output and damage potential. I'm not taking all the stuff you probably could be. This is just like personal damage stuff that I've been messing around with. There's a lot here. So off the bat, you do have all of the Evoker spec tree, class tree, sorry, which is a ton of utility, defensiveness, mobility, and stuff. So right away, they have all the Evoker stuff, so that's very, very good. But then this tree is very dense and deep with tons of interesting stuff. So the spec itself, which we'll get into gameplay in a bit, the spec itself revolves around Ebon Might, which is a 1.3 second cast, has a 30-second cooldown. It's reduced by this talent. But basically, you increase your 4 nearest allies' primary stat, so intellect, agility, or strength, by a percentage of your own, which is 14%. Now, I'm not sure if you have like mastery or something that increases this. We'll go over the mastery after, but 14% is a lot. You hit 4 allies. It'll prefer damage dealers if it can, and then your empower spells, your Breath of Eons, which is your cooldown, and Eruption, which is your main spender, extend this. So you can see here, this is Eruption. It replaces Disintegrate, so we don't have Disintegrate. It costs 2 essence, and it does like an AoE split of volcanic damage and increases the Ebon Might effects. And then you have a few other things here. You have an Empower called Upheaval, which is like an AoE Empower that increases your Ebon Might effects. If you go down here, Fire Breath also increases it. So Eruption is 1 second, Upheaval is 3 seconds, Fire Breath is 3 seconds, and then our main cooldown, Breath of Eons, which replaces Deep Breath, fly to target location, exposing temporal wounds on enemies in your path for 11.5 seconds. I believe this is increased by mastery this duration. So temporal wounds accumulate 21% of damage dealt by your allies affected by your Ebon Might buff. And then you critically strike that amount as arcane damage, and then it also applies Ebon Might for 5 seconds, so it also increases the duration. So this is pretty cool. Now the sounds are a little bit annoying. I think they're a little loud so far. But basically this breath, you fly over a bunch of enemies. Whenever you hit them, they get an effect on them. Then your allies affected by Ebon Might, which is your buff. Basically, it stores about a quarter of their damage and then doubles it at the end. This can honestly hit for quite a bit. Like, if you do this, let's say you Ebon Might 4 Warlocks, right? And then you Breath of Eons the boss during their opener. They're going to store 25% of that opener and then crit it, so doubles it. That's going to be a lot of damage. So I'm pretty impressed right off the bat by just the amount of buff capability they have. Just in Ebon Might, just in Breath of Eons alone. This is 14% intellect of your own, and this character's only like 412, so it's not like a crazy high level. And then you also like increase their damage and store a portion of that damage and then double it. So that's really strong right off the bat. We're not even that down into the tree yet. Other cool stuff, they have Essence Break up here. Whatever. Just Evoker stuff, pretty useful. I'm going to try and move further away from the people testing so we don't get annoying sounds here. And get away from that. Alright. They have this, Defy Fate. This is kind of crazy. So this is a cheat death. So fatal attacks are diverted into a nearby timeline, preventing that damage and your death in this one. So whenever you cheat death this way, you heal yourself for 166,000 HP, and you heal 4 nearby allies for 55,000 over 9 seconds. So that's pretty good. So whenever you yourself are going to proc your cheat death, your allies are going to get benefit from it and heal. So that's kind of crazy. So this upper part of the tree is really good. I don't really see a world where you take... these are kind of your optional nodes. You don't need them to get down further in the tree. Obviously, taking Quell or Inner Radiance is very good. And then these seem pretty good for just AoE or 2-target cleave. But that, again, entirely optional. I've been taking this one for now. Just makes your Living Flame hit 2 targets. So really powerful stuff. I'll just re-click all these things I was messing around with. So we get further down here. So this is kind of the top gate. Really cool stuff. Middle gate, we start to get more of the utility side of things. Less buff, less damage, but more utility. They're pretty good too. So we have timelessness, which is basically you have a target just deal 30% less threat for 34.5 minutes. So this is good in like dungeons if you have a DPS that's pulling a lot of damage. So put this on like a Devoker, put this on like a Fury Warrior, on a Havoc Demon Hunter, would be pretty good there. You have this thing, Seismic Slam, so Landslide, which is your root over here. By the way, they get root and Obsidian Scales for free instead of, you know, root or expunge or whatever. So pretty good. So Landslide, which is your root, causes enemies to slam to the ground if they're in the air and stuns them. Could be interesting in like PvP. So you would go Upheaval, which knocks things in the air, or you'd go Tail Swipe, which knocks things in the air, and then immediately hit Landslide and stun them for 2 seconds. I don't see much use of that in like Raid or something. It could be used in dungeons for a stun. But again, you know, interesting, but niche usefulness. This is just Eruption Essence cost reduced by 1. You want that, just more eruptions. This one's pretty interesting. So you have Perilous Fate, which reduces move speed and attack speed what enemies hit. Or you have Chrono Ward, which gives allies a shield for all the damage it deals, which seems really powerful. You have this here, which is just whenever you're flying, you take less damage. Geomancy just gives you more roots. Seems like more of a PvP thing. Then you have Bestow Wayern Stone, which seems really powerful. So this one, you conjure a Wayern Stone for yourself and an ally, and then either of you can use the ability to teleport to the other person. So that can be very powerful situationally. I'm not taking it because, like, again, situational powerful. Then we come down to more actives, and this, I believe, is the gate. No, this is the gate to the next row. Let me just double check that. Yeah, so we have Blistering Scales, which I just kind of take. You need it to kind of get down in the middle here. So you protect an ally with armor, and then melee attacks against them kind of blow up and deal damage. So you basically do this on a tank, and it says cast on your enemy's target if they have one. So you target the boss, use this, it goes on the tank. So pretty good stuff there. And this is interesting. So these are stances. So you have Black Attunement and Bronze Attunement. So you can be in either one of these stances. You have abilities that also activate and go into the other stance, which we'll get to in a moment. So Black Attunement is you and 4 allies have 5% increased max HP, which is pretty good. That's just a priest buff, basically. And then Bronze Attunement is you and 4 nearest allies have increased movement speed, which is just wind walking. So that's really good. 2 buffs in one. Very, very powerful. This side of the tree over here is like healer stuff. Spatial Paradox, it's lets you and a healer basically cast while moving, and then you also get 40 yards increased for your spells. So, like, it says most spells, so I don't think this will increase like breaths or anything like that, but it can give you like 100-yard range or 80-yard range, I guess, on some abilities. It can give P-Voker like 75-yard range. So interesting stuff here. Not sure if you're going to take it because it is also locked behind these 3 points. And these are more utility, less damage options. There's also Symbiotic Bloom. Just Emerald Blossom increases healing received. Could be useful if you're really needing like healing in a fight. But again, it's locked behind a lot of these points here. And there's also Prolonged Life, which your things that extend Ebb and Might also extend Healing Bloom. You can go into like a little bit of a healing build. I don't think you'll ever really do that. This is a DPS spec. It's not really a healing spec. I guess if you need the HPS, you could go into this here. But like in a dungeon or a raid, I think you'd rather just have the DPS thing going off. Why is it so loud? The PTR is always crazy, man. Like, I put things to be equal to live and it never works. Anyways, moving on. These things all kind of buff Blistering Scales. So this one I went into just because it's like Upheaval. So this one gives you Upheaval more crit chance. Then also, it can't be interrupted, which is good. This one gives them more damage to a primary target. This one is just buffs to Blistering Scales, gives them more scales, and Causing Eruption restores the scales, so you can just give a ton of scales to your tank. This one's like AoE damage, more essence. This one's interesting. So this is Aspect's favor. So basically, whenever you use your Obsidian Scales, you get into Black Attunement, so you get the HP stance, and it increases it more. And the other one, whenever you use Hover, you swap into Bronze Stance, and you get more speed. So that's pretty cool. This one here just gives you more CDR and Breath of the Eons. So that's kind of the first 3. So this middle tier here is more utility, less damage. So definitely some cool stuff, though. You get like the stance swapping is pretty cool. Then we're on to the bottom gate, and oh boy, there are some powerful things in this bottom gate. So I'm just going to re-click what I've been working with here. So we have Reactive Hide. Each time it explodes, it deals more damage. Pretty cool. Hoarded Power, Essence Burst, not being consumed. Pretty cool. Ignition Rust, Essence Burst, which is the cast time of Eruption, which is your main spender. Again, pretty cool. And then we have Prescience. So this is a bronze spell, 10-second cooldown instant. Grants an ally the gift of Foresight, increasing their crit chance by 3% for 23 seconds. It affects the nearest ally, and if you don't have one, it goes into yourself, basically. Pretty cool. It's a very minor crit buff. I don't think you take it, but the next abilities to feed into it are really good. So this one here, Anachronism, gives Prescience a chance to give you Essence Burst, and I think it's really powerful because it's an instant way of getting Essence Burst, and Essence Burst is very powerful for this class because it gives you a faster cast Eruption, and Eruption gives you more buff uptime of Ebb and Might. So this class is all about maintaining Ebb and Might buff uptime. So that's really good, and then you also have Fate Mirror. Prescience grants the ally a chance for their spells and abilities to echo their damage or healing, dealing 15% of the amount again. This is powerful. I think you'd probably take this in like a raid instead of this one, but I think Overlord's really good too in AoE. Next row here, Momentum Shift. Consuming Essence Burst grants you 5% int for 8 seconds, stacking 2 times. This works with Ebb and Might. So when you have this 5% int or 10% int, it does increase the buff potency of your Ebb and Might, making it stronger, which is really cool. Inferno's Blessing. Fire Breath grants you Inferno's Blessing to you and your allies affected by your buff, and gives them a chance for their damaging attacks to deal extra fire damage, which is just strong. This one over here, just Eruption, reduces the cooldown of Upheaval. So the more Eruptions you cast, the more Upheaval casts you get. Basically what I've found is that just doing your rotation naturally with this talent, you'll get Upheaval down to around the same CD as Fire Breath. So every 26 seconds or so with Interwoven Threads, you'll have basically Ebb and Might into Fire Breath into Upheaval, which seems pretty strong, I'm not going to lie. And then the final row here is pretty powerful. I'm going to save this talent for last. So we have Motes of Possibility. Essence abilities have a chance to form a moat near you. Anyone who picks it up gets 10 seconds off of their major ability. This one seems weird. I don't think moats are really that good in combat. I think it's a cool ability, but I don't think it's that good, really, because it requires your allies to move around and get them, and that's just pretty hard to do in most scenarios. Pretty weird. Could be good if it like if you're stacked in a ranged clump or a melee clump, and then you can't really target it. Could be interesting though, but I'm not sure on this one. Quantum Magic, we've all been this before, and power spells reach their level quicker. Then we have Overlord, which I think is really good. So Breath of Eons casts an Eruption at the first 3 enemies struck. Really good in a multi-target, potentially good in single target. This does, from what I've been doing, also work on increasing the duration of Ebb and Might. So basically makes Breath of Eons increase Ebb and Might by 6 to 8 seconds instead of the 5 that it does normally, which is pretty powerful as well. I do think you can drop this in single target for something like Fate Mirror, something like that. And then finally we have the capstone here. So this is really cool. Not sure which way this will go yet. I've tested with both of these, but Time Skip. So it's an active. It has a 3-minute CD, I think. I'll put it here and just apply these changes so we can look at it. But it's an active. Basically what it is you sit there and channel, and you reduce the cooldown of your abilities by 1,000% while you're channeling. So they just cool down 1,000 times percent faster, which is crazy, for 3 seconds. 3-minute cooldown. Works out to be about 1.5 minutes whenever you use it. It's pretty cool. So those are kind of all the talents. This is the build I've been working with. I think Interwoven Treads is a little bit better because you get higher buff uptime. And from what I can gather, the spec itself, its whole main idea is to just focus on keeping Ebb and Might up as much as possible. Now you do have another buff as well that doesn't come up there. You have a few like passives in the tree. You have Closest Clutch Mates. They're more effective when not in a raid. And then you have your Mastery, if I can find it. Nourishing Sands is just a thing for Emerald Blossom. Whenever you kill somebody, it gives experience or honor. So in a dungeon, the cooldown of Emerald Blossom's refreshed, and your next one gives you more health. But here's the Mastery. So it's Time Walker. So whenever you cast a power spell, you give Shifting Sands to 2 allies, preferring damage dealers, and you give them 16.1% verse for 11.5 seconds. So that is equal to my Mastery percentage. So you just give them whatever your Mastery is as verse, which is really powerful. And on top of that, the duration of itself, Breath of Eons and other helpful auras are increased by 14.9%. I'm pretty sure this does include your Ebb and Might. It includes stuff like Prescience. It would include Symbiotic Bloom. So all these powerful auras, it would include Inferno's Blessing. All these buffs you're giving out to people are going to be increased by your Mastery. So things look really strong here. We have one more thing here. So Sands of Time is just your effect, increased Ebb and Might. Where Eruption gives it 1 second, and Power Spells are 3, and Breath of Eons is 5. But then the effect can crit, which increases the duration by additional 50%. So if you crit on Eruption, 1.5, you crit on Ebon Might, 4.5, you crit on Breath of Eons, 7.5. So you can get a ton of extension with this Ebon Might here. So the playstyle I've kind of found, at least with this build, not sure if this is good or not anyways, is that just keeping as much Ebon Might up as you can. Ebon Might on yourself also increases the damage you do of Eruption, so it's doing more damage for yourself as well. And we'll get into some rotation in a second once I finish talking about the playstyle and stuff. It's a pretty simplistic playstyle, but it feels really powerful. You have a ton of really powerful buffs and abilities to give allies, like 14% primary, the 16% verse. You can have them like strike for 21% of that extra damage and crit it. You can give tank a shield that just kind of is always on. It's a 26-second cooldown. That's always on. It's always blasting ally enemies with damage. It gives you more armor for your tank. You have stuff like, where is it? Here you go. Draconic Attunements. It's a stance swap thing. You can be in either black or bronze attunement. So if I rush here, you see I'm in bronze attunement, 40% movement speed for me and my allies while this is up. And then goes back down to 10%. And then if I hit scales, I swap to black attunement, 20% max health. I have almost 5,000 HP on my 412 character. That's a lot. There's a lot packed into this toolkit, and it's kind of crazy. Not to mention, you also just get all of the Evoker spec tree, so it's really, really powerful. The gameplay loop is satisfying buffing people. Pretty simplistic. It's all about just kind of casting as many eruptions as you can. But it's pretty enjoyable, pretty fun, and it feels really strong because you're also just doing damage while you're buffing people. So we're going to hop over to a target dummy, and I'll show you guys just some testing. We'll talk about the playstyle, rotation, and all that stuff. All right, so here we are. Now, I've turned off LVY because, I'm on PTR. There's some weird things happening. But this bar here under my character's health is going to be our tracker for Ebon Might. So it's in the game. We'll go in edit mode. I'll move it up a little bit closer here. You guys can see it better. But basically, sure. Okay, there we go. Basically, this bar has the duration of your Ebon Might. At one single time, it can't go over 20 seconds. And you can honestly get a really long extension of it. So we'll go in, I'll use Lust, I'll just start everything. So what I found the best way to be is you start off with Lust, immediately cast your Ebon Might, then you go into your Fire Breath, instant cast your Eruption, and then use your Deep Breath here. And look, we already have 20 seconds, and then we just start casting Eruptions. And that's basically the main gameplay loop. Once you're out of Eruptions, you kind of just fill with Fire Breath, Living Flame to fish for instant cast procs, and then just use your other thing. I found Prescience to work well as well, because it has a really high chance of giving you Essence Burst. And Essence Burst is really powerful for the spec, again, because you get more Eruptions. You use Fire Breath again, use Upheaval. So I found one thing is that Ebon Might doesn't actually reset, like it doesn't pandemic the duration. So I find it a little bit better off the opener to save your second Ebon Might for a little bit later on, once all your things come back around. So we'll just chill here. We'll fish up some procs and just kind of wait for our things to come off cooldown. Then we'll hit them with an Ebon Might again. And this is just kind of your rotation. You're basically just buffing, using your instant cast spells, channeling your Upheaval, using your Eruptions, fishing for procs, and just giving buffs to your allies, to the tanks, giving a ton of just buffs to everybody, really. It's not doing a ton of damage. It does about 30k in single target. Now, of course, this is with A, me being really low eye level. B, I'm not actually giving my buffs to any allies, which will obviously affect things. So we'll recast Ebon Might here. We'll use my Fire Breath, use an Eruption, channel my Upheaval, use more Eruption. So it's a really simple rotation. It's not very complex. The complexities in it, I believe, come from just the buffs to give out, when to give it out, who to give it out to, and like positioning and stuff like that. But it is pretty easy to maintain near 100% uptime of your buff. Should you like A, need that, B, you just kind of get that passively, and it doesn't even seem that hard to do so. So I mean, you can see here, like my buff's already up at 13.5 seconds. I don't even have Breath of Eons. I don't even have that good gear. So I think this spec is going to be very powerful, in all honesty. Like, yeah, I'm doing like 30k DPS, but I'm also going to be giving a ton of damage to my allies around me. So I think their damage is really good. I think they're really tanky with their HP buff. I don't know if they're going to be that fun to play. They have a lot of movement. They have a lot of like positional things. They have a lot of utility to give to their class and people. So if you're one of those players who likes that aspect of the game, who likes, you know, thinking about when to use their utility, when to position themselves to get the most out of where they are, when to use things like that, I think this class will be very fun for you. But it won't do the most damage, which I think is good. But it does enough damage, combined with the fact that it just has a ton of really strong buffs. I think this class is going to be really strong. So again, just for reference, with Ebon, Breath of Eons, we can get a really long Ebon Might. So fish for a proc here with Prescience, didn't get it. We'll use Ebon Might, use my Fire Breath, use Upheaval, go in with Eons if I can use it. There we go, and then we just chain some Eruptions onto him, and we already have like 20-some seconds of Ebon Might buff here. So pretty easy rotation, pretty easy to get at least a good amount of utility out of this class. But I think that the ceiling here is like crazy. I think overall it's a really good first introduction for the spec. I think it's really strong. We'll see how busted it is. Oh, I actually want to show you guys this one. So I do want to show you guys the kind of channeling thing before I'm done here. We'll just put on Shift 3 for now. So if I go in, now I have Breath of Eons off CD and whatever, but we'll use my thing here. We'll use Ebon Might. We'll fish for Prescience proc, we'll use Eruption, we'll do Fire Breath, use our Eruptions here, and then we'll just go in and we'll channel our abilities. They all come back so fast, and in itself is not affected by it seems, but we have very high uptime if we do that. Now, of course, it gets a lot harder to keep max uptime with that, so we'll see if that ends up being the play. But overall, I mean, really cool toolkit, really I don't know if it's necessarily fun. I haven't played in content or anything. Really cool toolkit. Lots of things you can do with it. Really interesting ideas that are bringing to the table. Lots of utility, lots of damage options, lots of healing options, lots of defensive options. There's a lot of things to do to adapt yourself to a situation that your raid group or your dungeon group needs in that very moment, while also outputting some good damage. You can do better AoE than a single target as well, because Upheaval does AoE, Eruption does AoE, Fire Breath is AoE, your Breath of Eons is AoE. So interesting damage profile, very strong high uptime buffs. I think it's going to be a very impactful class that you're going to see a good bit of. I don't know if the play rate will be that high because it's just people buffing each other. But all in all, very interesting, very cool, and I think a very good first look. So that is going to be it for me today with this class. If you enjoyed the content, of course, drop a like, drop a comment below what you think about this new spec, and hit the sub button as well. Help grow the channel, help spread the video out and around, help me push up towards, I guess 10K is the goal now. We've passed 5, so we're pushing for that now. So I appreciate you all. I'll probably have a Havoc video out over the weekend as well. So have a good Friday. See you guys next time. Peace.